My name is Vanessa, I'm 22 years old, and I thought my graduation day was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. 4 years of late nights, stress, and working 2 part-time jobs to keep myself afloat finally paid off. I had earned a full-ride scholarship that covered all my tuition, and I managed to save up every extra dollar I could from stipends, tutoring, and research grants. By the time I was walking across that stage in my cap and gown, I had a small nest egg that felt like my ticket to freedom, to finally living life on my own terms. But what should have been a day of celebration quickly turned into the beginning of one of the darkest chapters of my life. After the ceremony, my mom pulled me aside, away from the noise of the crowd. At first, I thought she was going to hug me or tell me how proud she was. Instead, her voice turned sharp, almost demanding. She said, "Vanessa, you need to give that scholarship money to your cousin, Brandon. He needs it more than you do. You should be grateful you even got it in the first place." I froze. Brandon, my cousin who had coasted through high school, barely graduated, and spent most of his time hanging out at the local gas station parking lot, was standing right there, smirking. He didn't even look embarrassed, just smug, like he already knew she was going to fight this battle for him. I laughed, thinking it had to be a joke. But when I realized she was serious, my stomach twisted. That money wasn't a gift from her, it wasn't family property, it was mine. I earned it. I told her no. My voice shook, but it was the most certain no I had ever said in my life. Her face darkened instantly. She called me ungrateful, selfish, even heartless. Brandon just grinned wider, like he was enjoying the show. I walked away from them both, clutching my diploma, realizing this day wasn't going to be remembered for my accomplishment but for the line that had just been drawn. What I didn't know then was how deep that line would cut. The weeks after graduation were supposed to feel liberating. No more exams, no more professors breathing down my neck, no more juggling shifts at the coffee shop just to afford my textbooks. But instead of peace, I felt like I was living with a storm cloud hanging over me. My mom wouldn't let it go. She called me almost every day, starting with, "How are you?" but quickly circling back to the same thing, "Brandon. He's your family, Vanessa," she would say, her voice sharp with disappointment. "Family helps family. You've always been so selfish." That money could change his life. Every conversation ended the same way, with me hanging up in tears, wondering how my own mother could twist my biggest achievement into some kind of character flaw. Meanwhile, Brandon started showing up places I didn't expect. He'd swing by the coffee shop where I still worked part-time, leaning against the counter like he owned the place, smiling at me with that same smug expression. One day he even said, "You know you're just making things harder on yourself, right? Mom's not gonna drop it." That word, mom. He called my mom, Mom. She always did treat him like the son she wished she had, but hearing it out loud made me feel like a stranger in my own family. I tried to keep my head down, focus on planning my next steps. I had interviews lined up for internships, and my savings meant I could finally move into a small apartment without worrying about rent for a while. I thought if I just stayed firm, eventually they'd stop pressuring me. But then things escalated. My mom stopped speaking to me altogether. She told my aunt, Brandon's mom, that I was hoarding money and refusing to help the family. Suddenly, cousins I barely talked to were sending me texts about how cold I'd become. It stung, but I held my ground. That money was mine. Still, every night I lay awake, a gnawing thought eating at me, what if they didn't stop? What if they pushed harder? I didn't know it yet, but they were just getting started. It happened one humid Saturday afternoon in July. I was still living at my mom's house while waiting for my apartment lease to start, so avoiding her was nearly impossible. I thought she'd cooled off because she hadn't mentioned Brandon in over a week. I was wrong. I came home from a long shift at the cafe, exhausted and smelling like burnt espresso, and the first thing I noticed was that my bedroom door was slightly open. I never left it like that. When I pushed it open, my stomach dropped. My desk drawers were pulled out, papers scattered everywhere. My lockbox, the one where I kept the scholarship stipend checks and my savings, was sitting open on my bed. Empty. At first, I couldn't process it. I tore the room apart, hoping maybe I'd just misplaced the envelope, but it was gone. All of it. Every dollar I had spent 4 years building. I stormed into the kitchen, where my mom and Brandon were sitting at the table, drinking iced tea like it was any other day. My voice cracked when I asked, "Where is it?" My mom barely blinked. She just said, "I gave it to Brandon. He needs it more than you. You'll be fine. You always figure things out." Brandon leaned back in his chair, that same smug grin plastered on his face, and said, "Thanks, cuz. You really came through for me." I saw red. I wanted to scream, to grab the money back, to make them both feel what I was feeling, but all I could do was stand there, shaking, as the betrayal sank in. It wasn't just the money. It was the years of hard work, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the jobs I'd juggled, the friendships I'd lost because I was too busy grinding. They had taken more than money, they had stolen my independence. That night, I packed a duffel bag and slept in my car. I told myself I'd never forgive them. Not for this. And as I stared at the ceiling of my car in the grocery store parking lot, I made a promise to myself. They thought they'd won. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Sleeping in my car that first night was humiliating, but it lit a fire inside me I didn't know I had. The betrayal kept replaying in my head, like a movie on loop, my mom's calm dismissal, Brandon's smug grin. I swore I would never let them see me broken. If anything, I would rise higher than they ever imagined, and then make them regret underestimating me. The next morning, I drove straight to the leasing office of the tiny apartment I had been planning to move into. I explained my situation honestly, no sugarcoating, no excuses. The manager, a kind woman named Sheila, looked at me with sympathy and said, "Honey, if you can pay the deposit by the end of the month, I'll hold it for you." I didn't have a dime left, but I nodded like I did. I walked out with nothing but determination. The next few weeks were brutal. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe, sometimes working open to close, then cleaning offices at night for a little cash under the table. I sold clothes, my old laptop, even jewelry I had from high school just to scrape together the deposit. There were nights I slept in my car and showered at the gym, hiding the truth from my coworkers. But every dollar I saved felt like one step closer to freedom, and one step closer to the day I'd make them pay. By mid-August, I had enough for the deposit. When Sheila handed me the keys to my new apartment, a shabby studio with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, I nearly cried. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A space where no one could touch me, no one could take from me. And that's when the idea started to form. Revenge. Not the kind that would land me in jail. I wasn't about to throw away my future. But something quieter, smarter. Something that would make both my mom and Brandon realize exactly what they'd lost when they chose greed over me. I didn't have the full plan yet, but the seed was planted. And as I sat on the floor of that empty apartment, I whispered to myself, one day, they'll come crawling back. And when they do, I'll be ready. My studio apartment became the foundation of my new life. It was small, drafty in the evenings, and the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor arguing with her boyfriend almost every night, but it was mine. Every time I slid the key into the lock, I reminded myself, they can't touch me here. I threw myself into work. At the cafe, I started taking on more responsibilities, covering inventory orders, training new hires, even fixing the schedule when my manager got overwhelmed. One day, the district manager came in, noticed how smoothly things were running, and asked if I'd ever thought about moving into management. That spark of recognition was all I needed. At the same time, I started applying for internships again, using every connection I'd built in college. I didn't tell anyone about what happened. I let people think I was just another recent graduate trying to find her way. Slowly but surely, things began to shift. By the end of that year, I had secured a paid internship at a marketing firm downtown. The pay wasn't huge, but it was steady, and it came with possibilities. I worked myself to the bone, volunteering for projects no one else wanted, staying late to learn skills outside my role. It didn't take long before people started noticing me again, but this time, for all the right reasons. Meanwhile, I started saving with a new purpose. I opened a separate account, one my mom would never know about, and funneled every extra dollar into it. I stopped eating out, thrifted my clothes, and lived frugally. That account became my revenge fund. I didn't know exactly how I'd use it yet, but I knew one thing: when the day came that my mom and Brandon needed me, and I was certain they would, I'd be sitting on the other side of the table. What kept me going was the thought of their faces. My mom's expression when she realized she couldn't control me anymore. Brandon's smug grin wiped clean when he saw me succeed without him. For the first time since graduation, I felt powerful again. Not because of what I had in the bank, but because I was building something no one could steal from me. And deep down, I knew, this was only the beginning. It was almost poetic, the way things started to flip. For months, I kept my head down, grinding in silence. But word travels fast in families, even when you're not speaking to them. By the time I was promoted to a full-time position at the marketing firm, with benefits and a decent salary, I knew it was only a matter of time before my mom heard. I didn't tell her. She found out through my aunt. And the first crack came soon after. One evening, I was coming home from work, tired but proud, when my phone lit up with a call from my mom. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was softer than I'd expected. "Vanessa," she said, "do you think you could lend me some money for rent this month? Things have been difficult." I almost laughed out loud. The woman who had called me selfish and ungrateful, who handed my hard-earned savings to Brandon without a shred of guilt, was suddenly asking me for help. I told her I didn't have anything to spare and hung up. A week later, I ran into one of Brandon's old friends at the grocery store. He smirked and said, "Your cousin's been bragging less these days. Heard he blew through all that money." My chest tightened, but not with pity, with satisfaction. I later confirmed it. Brandon had tried community college with the money, but dropped out after one semester. The rest? Gone on a new car, clothes, and nights out with his buddies. Now he was back to working odd jobs, still living with my mom, still expecting handouts. The irony wasn't lost on me. My mom had gambled away her relationship with me for him, and he had nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I had upgraded my apartment to a one-bedroom with actual sunlight streaming through the windows. I bought furniture secondhand, piece by piece, until it started to feel like a home. I was building a reputation at work as someone dependable, creative, and relentless. But I didn't just want to succeed, I wanted them to see me succeed. To feel the sting every time they realized what they threw away. And soon, I'd have the perfect chance to make sure they did. I didn't want my revenge to be loud or messy. No screaming matches, no dramatic confrontations. What I wanted was quiet and undeniable, the kind of success that spoke for itself and made them realize, all on their own, what they had lost. So I started planting seeds. The first step was social media. I had kept my accounts private for a long time, but now I began sharing small glimpses of my life, a photo of my new apartment with sunlight pouring in, a snapshot of my desk at the marketing firm with a caption about late nights building dreams, a group photo from a networking event where I was shaking hands with people in sharp suits. I wasn't bragging. I was intentional. Just enough for it to circulate back to my family. And it worked. One night, I got a text from my cousin Lacey, someone I'd barely spoken to in years. "Hey girl, saw your pics. You're really doing big things. Your mom must be so proud." I almost choked. Proud? She hadn't spoken a kind word to me since graduation. But it told me everything I needed to know, the updates were reaching her. Around the same time, Brandon started showing up in my DMs. At first it was casual, "Hey, long time no see." Then it got bolder. "You should help me get a job where you work. You're lucky to have that hookup." Lucky. As if everything I had wasn't built from years of sacrifice. I left him on read. At work, things kept climbing. My manager, impressed with my consistency, offered me the chance to lead a small campaign for a local startup. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a step toward leadership, and I poured everything into it. When the campaign exceeded expectations, my name started to mean something in the office. And here's the beautiful part, I didn't chase them. I didn't call my mom, I didn't reply to Brandon. I let them sit in their silence, watching from the sidelines as I climbed higher. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about confrontation. It was about patience. It was about letting them watch me become everything they tried to take from me. And I knew, sooner or later, they'd come knocking again. It was a chilly November evening, the kind where the air felt sharper than usual, when the knock came at my door. At first, I thought it was my neighbor. She sometimes asked to borrow sugar or laundry detergent. But when I opened it, my stomach tightened. It was them. My mom stood on the welcome mat, wrapped in an old coat, her face pale and tense. And just behind her, slouched with his hands in his pockets, was Brandon. He didn't look smug this time. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then my mom broke the silence. "Vanessa," she said softly, "can we come in?" Everything in me screamed no. I wanted to slam the door in their faces. But something stronger held me back, the part of me that remembered my promise. One day, they'd come crawling back. And here they were. I stepped aside. They sat at my small dining table, looking out of place among the second-hand furniture and potted plants I'd collected. My mom cleared her throat. "Things have been hard. The house needs repairs we can't afford. And Brandon," she hesitated, glancing at him, "hasn't been able to find steady work. We were hoping, maybe you could help us." I leaned back in my chair, studying them. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. Brandon tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "Look, I know I messed up with the money. But I really need a break. You're doing good now. You could help." For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt power. I thought back to that graduation day, to my mom's cold words, to the way Brandon grinned as my savings disappeared. And now here they were, broke, desperate, sitting in my home, asking me for help. I folded my hands on the table and said, calmly, "Funny. Because I remember when I needed support, and you both chose to take from me instead. Why should I lift a finger now?" Their silence was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning of their lesson. The silence stretched so long I could hear the hum of my refrigerator. My mom stared at her hands, twisting them in her lap, while Brandon kept his eyes fixed on the table, jaw clenched. Finally, my mom spoke. "Vanessa, I know I was harsh before. But you've always been stronger than him. Brandon he needs guidance. We both do. I shouldn't have called you ungrateful. I shouldn't have," she stopped herself, voice trembling. "But we're family. Family helps each other." I let the words hang in the air, savoring the irony. How many times had she said that exact phrase to guilt me into giving up what was mine? This time, I leaned forward and met her eyes. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't call you selfish for protecting what you earned. Do you even realize what you did to me? I was sleeping in my car after you handed my money over to him. Her face went pale. Brandon shifted uncomfortably, but didn't defend himself. "And now," I continued, "you sit here asking me to fix everything. You want me to be the safety net you never were for me. Do you understand how insulting that is?" My mom's eyes brimmed with tears, but I didn't flinch. "Not anymore. As far as I'm concerned," I said, my voice steady, "you and Brandon made your choices. You thought I'd crumble. You thought I'd fail. Instead, I built this," I gestured around my apartment, "without a cent from either of you. So tell me, why should I save you now?" Brandon finally looked up, his voice low. "Because you can." That was it. No apology. No remorse. Just entitlement, the same as always. I stood, signaling the conversation was over. You should leave. Both of you. My door isn't open for beggars who once slammed it in my face. Their eyes widened at the coldness in my tone. But I didn't back down. I watched as they shuffled out, my mom pausing like she wanted to say something more, but then turning away. When the door shut behind them, I felt something I hadn't in years, complete control. For once, they were the powerless ones. I thought that night would be the end of it, but desperation has a way of erasing pride. 2 weeks later, there was another knock on my door. This time, it wasn't tentative, it was rapid, frantic. I opened it to see my mom again, but she looked worse than before. Her hair was messy, her face drawn, her coat hanging off her shoulders like it was too heavy to carry. Vanessa, please, she said before I could even speak. The landlord's threatening to evict us. Brandon can't keep up with the bills, and her voice cracked. I don't know what to do. Behind her, Brandon hung back, arms crossed. He looked angrier this time, not humble at all. His jaw was tight, and his tone dripped with bitterness when he said, "We wouldn't even be in this mess if you'd just helped from the start." I almost laughed in his face. Helped? He'd squandered every dime I'd earned, and now he was blaming me for his failure. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so they couldn't even glimpse the comfort of my home. Do you hear yourself? I asked him. You burned through everything you were given, and somehow, it's my fault? That's rich, Brandon. My mom reached for my arm. Don't talk like that. He just needs a chance. One more chance. I pulled away. That's all he's ever gotten. Chance after chance, while I was left with nothing. And you always chose him over me. Always. Her lips trembled, but she didn't deny it. She couldn't. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. You too made your bed. Now you're lying in it. And I won't bail you out. Not now, not ever. For the first time, my mom's face hardened, anger flickering through the desperation. One day, you'll regret this, she hissed. I held her gaze, unshaken. No, Mom. The only regret I'll ever have is letting you take so much from me before I finally said no. Then I walked back inside and locked the door, leaving them both standing in the cold. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. After that night, I decided I was done entertaining their knocks, calls, or texts. I blocked Brandon's number entirely, and when my mom tried calling from different phones, I let them go straight to voicemail. I told myself, they chose their path. Let them walk it. And as I shut them out, my own life opened wider. At work, the startup campaign I'd led caught the attention of a bigger client. My boss pulled me into his office one Friday afternoon, leaned back in his chair, and said, "Vanessa, you've got an eye for strategy. I want you leading more accounts." Just like that, I was no longer the intern who worked herself to the bone. I was becoming a name in the firm. With the raise that came with the new responsibilities, I started breathing easier. For the first time in years, I wasn't counting pennies before buying groceries. I upgraded to a reliable used car, furnished my apartment with things that weren't secondhand, and even started a small savings account I nicknamed my future fund. Meanwhile, the updates about my mom and Brandon trickled in through family gossip. I didn't ask, but somehow, I always heard. Apparently, the landlord had followed through with the eviction threat. They'd fallen months behind on rent, and when the utilities were cut off, my mom had no choice but to pack up. She and Brandon were now bouncing between relatives' couches, overstaying their welcomes. Brandon, I heard, had lost yet another job. Something about showing up late too many times. He blamed the manager, of course, never himself. The irony was rich. The girl they once called selfish was now living independently, thriving, and moving forward. And the cousin my mom had sacrificed me for was dragging her down with him. Some nights, I sat by my apartment window, city lights glowing in the distance, and thought, this is the real revenge. Not screaming, not fighting, but living better than they ever imagined while they fall apart. Still, a part of me knew they weren't done. Desperate people always circle back. And when they did, I would make sure the lesson cut deeper. It was late January when they came back. The cold had settled into the city, and I was curled up on my couch with a blanket and a book when the pounding started at my door. It wasn't a polite knock this time, it was frantic, almost desperate. When I opened it, I barely recognized them. My mom looked older, as if the last few months had drained years from her face. Her coat was frayed, and she clutched a plastic grocery bag that looked like it carried everything she owned. Brandon stood behind her, shivering in a hoodie that wasn't nearly warm enough for the weather. His eyes darted everywhere, avoiding mine, and for the first time since graduation, the smug grin was completely gone. Vanessa, my mom's voice cracked, we have nowhere else to go. Please. Just for a little while. Just until we get back on our feet. My heart thudded in my chest, not from pity but from the sheer weight of the moment. This was it. The begging I'd always known would come. I let them inside, not out of kindness, but because I wanted them to see what I had built. My apartment was warm, tidy, and filled with little touches of success, framed certificates on the wall, a nice couch I'd bought myself, a kitchen stocked with groceries. Everything they had said I'd never manage without them was right here, surrounding us. Brandon collapsed into a chair, rubbing his hands together for warmth. We just need a place to stay. A little help. You've got it good now, Vanessa. You can spare it. There it was again. That entitlement, even when he was at rock bottom. I stood in front of them, arms crossed, letting the silence stretch. Then I said, slowly, do you remember graduation day? Do you remember what you both did to me? Neither of them answered. That money was supposed to be my future. You stole it. You laughed at me. And now you want to sit in my home and ask for help? I shook my head. No. Not this time. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Vanessa, we're your family. We've got nothing left. Please. For the first time, I smiled, not kindly, but coldly. Exactly. You've got nothing. And that's what you gave me once, too. Now it's my turn. Their faces fell, and for a split second, I felt the power shift completely into my hands. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was in control. I let the silence linger, watching them squirm on my furniture, the same kind of furniture I'd once dreamed of owning back when I was sleeping in my car because of them. Finally, I said, you want help? Fine. But it comes with conditions. Brandon sat up straighter, hope flashing in his eyes. My mom leaned forward, clutching her hands together. Anything, she whispered. I took a slow breath, making sure every word cut deep. First, you admit what you did. Out loud. Right here, right now. You stole from me. You called me ungrateful. You left me with nothing. Say it. Their faces froze. Brandon's jaw tightened like he'd rather swallow glass than admit it. My mom's lips trembled. Vanessa, is that really necessary? I raised an eyebrow. Then you can leave right now. Door's right there. The room went still. Brandon muttered something under his breath, but I caught it, fine. Yeah, I spent the money. It was supposed to help me, but I blew it. Happy now? I turned to my mom. She looked at me with watery eyes, and for the first time, I saw shame in them. I betrayed you, she whispered. I chose him over you. And I was wrong. Hearing it out loud sent a jolt through me. Not forgiveness, I wasn't sure I'd ever get there, but validation. Finally, they said the words I'd been waiting to hear. I nodded slowly. Good. Now here's the deal. I'll give you some money, but it won't be much. Just enough for food and maybe a night or two somewhere safe. After that, you're on your own. No second chances. No more begging at my door. You want a life? Earn it the way I did. Brandon's face twisted with disgust. You've got plenty. You could do more than that. I leaned closer, my voice icy. And you could have made something of yourself instead of wasting everything. Don't lecture me about what I could do. He shut his mouth. I handed my mom a small envelope with a couple $100, money I could spare without blinking now, but not enough to change their situation. Just enough to keep them alive long enough to realize the depth of their downfall. Take it, I said. And don't come back here expecting more. My mom took the envelope with trembling hands. Brandon didn't even thank me. And as they left, heads down, I felt it. The revenge wasn't complete yet, but the knife had turned, and they knew it. After that night, they didn't come back for a while. I think the humiliation of admitting the truth in my apartment, of taking scraps from the daughter and cousin they once mocked, was too much for them to bear. But their absence didn't mean silence. Family gossip is a river that never dries up, and every so often, I'd hear whispers through cousins or aunts. Brandon had burned bridges everywhere. He'd stayed with my Aunt Clara for 2 weeks before she kicked him out for stealing from her purse. My mom tried staying with a church friend, but she wore out her welcome quickly. Too much complaining, too much pride even in desperation. Meanwhile, my life was accelerating. The small accounts I managed at work turned into larger ones. I led a campaign for a regional chain that performed so well it landed in an industry newsletter. My boss started introducing me as one of our rising stars, and clients began requesting me by name. By the time spring rolled around, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. With my growing salary, I upgraded again. This time, a 2-bedroom apartment with hardwood floors and a view of the city skyline. I bought myself new furniture, not because I needed it but because I deserved it. I even framed my diploma, the same one I clutched on that miserable graduation day, and hung it in my living room like a trophy. And of course, I shared pieces of my progress online. Not in a flashy, bragging way, but intentionally enough that I knew word would trickle back. A photo of me at a networking gala in a sleek black dress. A snapshot of my new apartment view at sunset. A caption about closing another successful campaign. I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to know I was building a life they could never touch. By early summer, the whispers turned darker. Someone told me my mom was staying at a shelter, and Brandon was couch hopping with people he barely knew. Their pride was crumbling under the weight of reality. And I knew, sooner or later, they'd come crawling again. But this time, I was ready to end it for good. It was a humid August evening when it happened. I was coming home from work, heels clicking against the pavement, when I saw them. My mom and Brandon were sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. They looked wrecked. My mom's hair was unbrushed, her clothes loose on her frame. Brandon's hoodie was ripped, his sneakers falling apart. Their faces carried the weight of months, maybe years, of bad choices finally catching up to them. For a split second, I almost felt something, pity, maybe. But then I remembered sleeping in my car, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd make it through the next day because they had stolen everything from me. That pity turned to steel. When they saw me, they stood. My mom stepped forward, her eyes pleading. Vanessa, please. We're at the end. We've got nowhere to go. We need you. Brandon stayed silent, but his expression gave him away. He wasn't asking. He was expecting. Even now, when he had nothing, he thought I owed him something. I took a deep breath, clutching my purse strap, and looked them both in the eye. No, I said firmly. Not anymore. You had your chance with me. You could have supported me, lifted me up, celebrated me. Instead, you stole from me, mocked me, left me with nothing. And now you're standing here because the world finally gave you what you gave me. My mom's lips trembled. Brandon's jaw tightened. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only they could hear. When I needed you, you left me in the dark. So now. I'm leaving you there. This is the last time you ever show up at my door." Their eyes widened, but I didn't wait for a response. I walked past them, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. Before closing it, I turned once more and said, "Now it's my turn." Then I shut the door. Inside my apartment, my beautiful, hard-earned home, I sank onto the couch and let the weight of it all wash over me. Not sadness, not guilt, but freedom. Because revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about reclaiming myself. And in that moment, I knew I had won.